live stream edition of Guns and Gadgets. If you're into Second Amendment news, this is the place you need to be, because I do lately 3 videos a day nonstop, and I haven't seen my wife in a long time. This live stream is brought to us by Blackout Coffee. You know I'm a part owner of Blackout Coffee. It's the best coffee there is. If you don't like coffee, we do loose leaf tea and hot chocolate. It's made in Florida. We do everything on our own. blackoutcoffee.com/GNG. And if you want, you can use code TGC too, because John's with us as well.
Yeah, I would appreciate it if you instead use code TGC. Also, the tea is very good. I drink it all the time. I really English breakfast tea. Oh, so good.
So obviously you see our special guests. We have John Patton from the Gun Collective. John, thank you for your time, my friend.
Who?
Somebody like you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, hi.
And our VIP guest tonight is somebody everybody knows something of, but might not know the man. This is Alex Bosco, the founder of SB Tactical and the person who invented the pistol brace. You may have heard a little bit of fiasco around the pistol brace, which is why we brought Alex on today. There's a lot going on that you may or may not know about. It's been going on for a long time. And who else to tap into other than the man, the myth, the legend, Alex. Alex, man, thank you for taking time out of your super busy schedule to joining us.
So great to join both of you guys, man. It's fantastic to be here.
I look forward to it. So what we're going to do, guys and gals, is it's going to be like a free-flowing conversation. We have some stuff we're going to touch on because it's imperative and important. And then we'll tap into some questions, too, as we go along. But before we go into this, there's been some breaking news today on a couple angles, couple avenues within the ATF. I'm going to have Alex go over one in a second here. The first one is they're retracting something that they did 3 days ago that John's video actually put into light in front of the masses. Is on the eForms website. If you logged in and went way, way, way deep into the FAQs, there was a question on there: can I let somebody else shoot my NFA item? And the moron who typed the response on the website said no, and that the only person who could touch that, whether it was physical or constructive possession, had to be a registered owner. And NSSF reached out to the ATF, and today they got the ATF to admit that they were wrong. They actually, let me read the response, because I want to be totally accurate, especially when it's the government correcting an error, which never happens.
Yeah, that's like, we need to put that on a plaque on the wall.
Yeah, we
correct themselves.
Frame it in gold.
Yeah, right.
It says the Q&A currently listed on the eForms account is incorrect. In this scenario, the registered owner of the NFA weapon is collected with a firearm, and thus no transfer has occurred. However, if the person firing the NFA weapon is prohibited from possessing the firearm, there could be a GCA violation. That's Gun Control Act for everybody out there. And we're working to correct the site as quickly as possible. And John verified earlier that it has been taken down. Your thoughts, gentlemen?
They completely erased that from that FAQ page. We went digging, when we were doing prep work for this, and I find it really fascinating that some representative of the ATF screwed up that poorly. Like, that's bad. How can you let something like that out? And then, was there no oversight? Like, what is going on in that department? Like, what the hell is wrong with those?
Yeah, but Jonathan, not to kick somebody when he's down, but like, isn't it indicative of what they've been like lately? I mean, I got an email the other day saying that they were going to do some kind of online forum for the brace regulation, and then all of a sudden it was like, no, sorry, we sent out the wrong date. And so now people, it was just like, it's really confusing. There's a lot, I mean, I don't know, it seems like there's a lot of disorganization behind, the scenes here. So I think this is just another one of those things. And we're going to talk about more of it here on the show, but it's insane.
Yeah, and speaking of date, we'll jump into the next one. We can now say that so far what they're saying is the publication date for the final rule in the Federal Register is currently planned for January 31st of 2023. And that came today from Eric Longnecker, who's the Deputy Chief of the ATF's Public Affairs Division. And if you do a real quick check on the calendar, the 120th day would be Wednesday, May 31st, 2023. So for everybody who's wondering, that's going to be your parameters. As long as it's actually printed on the 31st, those are your parameters. Day one would be the 31st of January. Day 120 would be Wednesday, the 31st of May. What do you guys think about that BS?
Well, I don't know.
How much time you got?
It's good. It's good that they're going to finally publish it. I think I had a lot of questions about this. I don't know about you guys, but I had a lot of questions about, people reading into the fact that they weren't publishing it. What's going on? Are they changing their mind? I really just think that it hasn't been on, I don't think it's been on the White House. It's on their priority list, but it's just been in the queue. And when it comes out, it comes out. I don't think they've been pushing at it.
Yeah, plus they have to, the Federal Register is the one who also publishes all the new bills for this current Congress. And there's a ton of bills that have been submitted with all the, it's only a couple of days into the session, really. So whatever was submitted prior to this document gets put out first.
Yeah, they got to put out all the other re-election fodder that does absolutely nothing for anybody. And then, just shove in some screwing of gun owners in there, just a little spices in there. You know what I mean?
A smidge.
Get that in there.
Ooh, yeah, man. Jesus, it's getting bad.
All right, Alex, let's go into the third big snafu that was addressed today, and that's the 922R fiasco. Why don't you jump into that one, my friend?
Yeah, I'm curious about this.
Yeah, so I think the best thing to do is to kind of talk about a lot of the conversation that surrounded the implications of what 922R means for everybody. And, I think a lot of the time online, people are watching us. None of us are attorneys, so there's no legal advice here, but we try to learn a lot online. And it's kind of a joke. Where'd you learn about that? Online. So it must be true. Well, right. A lot of people are saying a lot of different things. From my perspective, I deal with attorneys every day. I've been on the phone every day with attorneys talking about the intricacies of all the different aspects of the 293 pages. I guess my point is that people are kind of interpreting this in a lot of different ways. And with the caveat that I think we should always, as an industry, be working to row in one direction. I think that we're seeing a lot of people just kind of saying different things. And with respect to the 922R issue, people are saying, well, it's really not that big of a deal. And to get to the end of it and then to go back forward again, the end is the ATF is saying, oh, you got nothing to worry about. You're fine. You'll be okay, which is what a few people have said online. And a few of these people are attorneys, and they say, oh, you're going to be okay. There's nothing to worry about. ATF isn't going to come after you. And that's essentially giving the ATF the benefit of the doubt. And after everything that's happened, amongst our community, my biggest issue is, why are you still giving them the benefit of the doubt? There's several people online that have mentioned this. And I don't do that. I think I've had several types of attorneys, and Jonathan, you and I talked about this. I don't know if you and I talked about it, but I've had a lot of attorneys in this past 10 years, as the people who are watching can possibly imagine, whether it be IP, whether it be litigation, whether it be this stuff that we're talking about. Two types of attorneys that I've seen. One type of attorney is the type of attorney that's always telling you, don't do this, don't do that, don't ever do this. You're going to get in trouble for that. They're telling you that around every corner is the apocalypse, okay? And then there's another type of attorney, which is the type of attorney that says, dude, you're fine. You can do that. There's no issue at all. Now, while I love those attorneys that tell me go ahead and do it, and I hate the attorneys that are always telling me you're going to die of something at any moment.
Right.
The best attorneys I've ever had have always been the ones to say, watch out for all of these things. And the worst attorneys I've ever had have been the one who told me, hey, you'll be fine. Because I always ended up getting screwed in the end. And that's for another show someday.
I mean, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're going to jump in there.
If we look at the totality of the brace issue over the last several years, thanks, Eric. Appreciate you, brother.
Eric. Appreciate it.
If we look at the totality of this and the yes, it's fine, no, it's not, yes, it's fine, no, it's not, that alone dictates that we should not give anyone in that organization any benefit of any doubt at all. It would behoove us not to.
That's the point. I mean, and that's actually where I was going with it. Was essentially, they're talking. We were talking about 922R. Okay, so at this point, in the 293 pages, I forget what page it's on. I wrote it down somewhere, but it's like 240 something. Essentially, they're saying that through their impact study, if you have these weapons that are imported, they're not 922R compliant, because remember, the entire premise of ATF's brace ruling is that they were wrong from the very beginning. Okay, that's why they're saying no letters. That every letter that we've ever written is gone. We were wrong from the very beginning, and from the very beginning, what we should have said was that a brace is a stock, and that's why in the definition of rifle, they're changing it and adding brace to that definition. So retroactively, they're saying all of those guns were rifles. Well, if all of those guns were always rifles, okay, then the pistol that was imported was also a rifle, which brings us to today's 922R FAQ that the ATF let out. And the question was, and I'll read it because it's in front of me, is I possess a pistol which was imported and then subsequently equipped with a stabilizing brace. Does 18 USC 922R apply to my firearm? It's a great question, and it's what was talked about, okay? What is it? Like, does it apply? Does 922R apply to this pistol? And their first sentence is one word with a period at the end of it. No. So, okay, great. And if you jump to the very end of their response, they're even saying no, and all you got to do is just register your firearm, like we said, like all the other guns.
Right.
Forget all that stuff we talked about, where you're in possession of contraband and all the discussions that a few people have done online. Like it's fine, just register the firearm. The problem is that within the body of their response, they're saying two completely different things. They're saying no in the beginning, and then in the body of the response, they're telling you that no modification of such a firearm would cure that 922R violation because the assembly has already occurred, which means you can't fix the fact that the 922R compliant pistol that we talked about is non-compliant. There's nothing that you're going to fix that. Now, it's all about how their discretion. We've talked about this too. They're saying just register the firearm, you're fine. But these are two different bodies of law, okay? One is 922R, okay, and the body of law that gets involved in there, and I wrote this down too, it's part of the Internal Revenue Code, which includes the NFA, which is a different body of law. And then there's a different body of law that they're talking about, which is the response to the brace itself. So what's the real deal here? And the issue is this, all these people are watching, right? The ATF has written a lot of stuff. We've had 5 different people online say 5 different things. And the 3 of us are kind of coming to similar conclusions, but all of us are saying that there's an issue here and it's really confusing, okay? And the implications are what? We've sold more than 10 million braces. There's a lot of people out there that are in possession of these things. We have 120 days to respond, and we're still getting nonsense that's coming out of the agency or the Department of Justice, one or the other. So What do we do? What does it mean? I got to be honest with you. I've been speaking to some of the most highest paid attorneys in DC, and I know this because I'm paying them. They don't even know what to make. It's just, it seems insane. It's crazy.
You know what's fascinating to me about this entire thing is that there isn't any clarity. And we talked about this prior to going live. I said that they have the balls to call this the final rule, as this is the conclusion of an epic story or something like that. The balls to call it the final rule, yet it makes zero sense in so many different ways. The language used is confusing at best, and now we have the potential for over 10 million people to be felons potentially. Like, right. There's this weird thing where we're all going, wait, what? You can't be serious, right? Like, that's not, you're messing with us, right? Because the implication of that many people being felonious is absolutely asinine. From top to bottom, to pretend like we could just have that many people be caught up in this, and then you take a look at the comment section on any topic somewhat relating to this, and the amount of "I will not comply." I mean, there's one right there from JJ Rainey in our comment section saying "I will not comply." The amount of that versus what the ATF is saying. Like, how are they possibly going to deal with this? It is complete unenforceable garbage, right? Am I wrong here?
I don't think
No, you spot on, and that I think that's
Crazy.
what's going to be the fun part here as we wait, because once it is published, then there can be legal action. So I think we should all take a wait and see approach. And since Alex talked about the definition, which is one of the big things in this document, is redefining what rifle is. Let's just throw it up here if I can do this without blowing up my screen.
Yeah, look at that. So fancy.
Look at that, huh?
Yeah.
Software makes it look like you know what you're doing. So I wanted everybody to see this physically, because I could just read it off and people aren't going to listen, but you can see it for yourself. It's just a couple quick slides. This is what they're trying to change related to the definition of rifle. And let's remind ourselves, Congress is the only one who can do this, but here's the ATF trying to do it on their own. It says, for purposes of this definition, the term designed or redesigned, made or remade, and intended to be fired from the shoulder shall include a weapon that is equipped with an accessory, component, or other rearward attachment, example, a stabilizing brace, that provides surface area that allows the weapon to be fired from the shoulder, provided other factors, as described in paragraph 2, indicate that the weapon is designed, made, and intended to be fired from the shoulder. Now, John, you mentioned earlier how ambiguous they are, and government lives in ambiguity land. Every gray area they can find, that's where they like to lurk.
50 Shades of Grey was actually written about the ATF. You didn't know that.
Like, for those of us who have read the 293 pages, there is a couple criteria that they're going to take into consideration. And one of them, the first one, is surface area, but they don't say how they're going to determine the surface area. You know, if you take your pistol brace off and you just have that buffer tube, what about that surface area? You know, and they stay vague for a reason so that they can jam people up. So just Alex, since you are the one who's at the center of all this, thank you, Malcolm. I heard in another YouTube video moments ago that dismantling a firearm equipped with a pistol brace is an option. Yeah, you can always take it apart, but then there you go. The constructive possession. The ATF loves to use gray areas.
The part that I think is missed in that statement is that they say take it apart and destroy the brace.
And destroy the brace, right.
Which you paid a significant amount of money for, which arguably goes into the takings clause and blah, 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 blah. Like, there's a whole nother chain of thought there. I would say that's not the greatest of options.
And they say in the very beginning, the first page or second page, this is not a brace ban. And people you can still use your braces, but
you just have to register.
Take them off and destroy them.
That's the issue. That's one of the issues that I have is that, but again, a personal note, guys, and you know me, I'm far too emotional about so many things. Here's one of them. Like, the fact that in the first ruling, the one that they presented to us pre the responses, there was something that was dispositive. And by dispositive, I mean that there was a scenario by which you could come to the conclusion that a certain brace was good on a certain firearm. The brace that they used as that dispositive example was the SB Mini. And they put that on an AR pistol, and they said, you could do this on this firearm. And they had a picture of it. It was the SB Mini on a buffer tube. There were no sights on the firearm, because remember, putting sights or any kind of optic that has a eye relief that is not that the eye relief of a pistol optic would also make it become a rifle. In other words, they were only saying you can only put pistol optics on it, because like an ACOG on a pistol turned it into a rifle because the ACOG was designed for a rifle. Anyway, the point is this. They had a dispositive example. In this new format, there is nothing that is dispositive, albeit they do say, yeah, if it was designed and specifically for the purpose of being a brace, you're good to go. You don't have to worry about it. And then they don't give you any kind of dispositive example, other than obviously submitting something to the ATF, which you'll get back in 6 to 8 months, if not more.
Alex,
or
actually,
if you get a response at all. That's if you get a response.
This is probably a good spot, Alex, for those who don't know the story behind where we are now in the 10 years leading up to this week, well, last week at SHOT Show. Give everybody a quick breakdown of the timeline. All right, you invent the brace, and then you get that letter. Talk about that letter, the first letter, and where we are now, and how many times presidents have tried to get the ATF to change it.
So yeah, that's a great point. And I've done this before, but I think maybe some of the people that are watching haven't heard it. And it's important because it It allows people to understand the dynamic between SB Tactical, our attorneys, and the ATF. And so I invented the product in 2012. Okay, it was under the Obama administration. The product was approved. This was pre Sandy Hook shooting, and I went out and everybody started buying this thing, and it was pre Sandy Hook, and essentially we sold this thing for several years under the Obama administration. Now, Obama, as you guys know, wanted to do something about firearms the whole time. He was trying to push through a whole set of things that would affect the gun industry. And essentially, towards the end of his administration, he put in somebody called B. Todd Jones. And B. Todd Jones was the first presidential appointee, I think, since Mike Sullivan, if I'm not. Somebody will correct me about this.
Yeah, for the director position, I believe you're right.
Right, for the director position, Mike Sullivan was appointed by Bush. So, and also Mike Sullivan represented us, and he's also one of the guys that we go to. He's one of the attorneys that we use from time to time. At any rate, B. Todd Jones becomes the head of the ATF, and at the same time, we start getting this whole thing about if you put the thing on your shoulder, it's it becomes you're changing the use and you're misusing the product, and use determines what it is. And that's when everybody was coming out with, well, what if I use a fork to cut something, does the fork become the knife? And there were all sorts of like hammer nail explanations. At any rate, that was 2015. Now, prior to 15, we had a few letters that were positive. I went back to the ATF and I went to West Virginia to their headquarters and presented my adjustable brace. And I had to go there. They wanted me to talk to them directly. And I went in front of a board of people from the ATF. And I said, this is the brace that I want to do. It's adjustable for such and such a reason. I had gotten denied initially for an adjustable brace. And they wanted me to resubmit it and present it personally. And I got the approval for that. In the meantime, we got another letter, which is commonly called the Bradley letter, the Sergeant Bradley letter, which was a sergeant out of Colorado that said, hey, what's going on here? As police officers, what do we do? Can we enforce this? I don't remember exactly the specific question, but the specific response from the ATF was, we can't tell people how they can and can't use their legally purchased firearm.
Right.
Okay. This was all pre B. Todd Jones, pre misuse of the shouldering thing. So there were a lot of letters that were saying, yeah, you could do this. Now, back and forth. We've done this how many times? I don't know, since 2015, 3 times, 4 times. So at any rate, that happens. 15 happens. And I start, going to ATF and saying, look, guys, this whole idea is untenable. What do you mean you can't put it to your shoulder? And then something happened towards the end of 16, which was the Trump phenomenon. And Trump was elected president. And as I've said before, the people at ATF, there's like a political flag in their office. And the minute the political flag sways to a different direction, they're like, oh, wait, we got to start doing things a different way, which is what Jim Jordan is trying to do. He's talking about politicized agencies, weaponized agencies. What better example of a weaponized agency than the bump stock rule? I hate to call out Trump on this one, but the bump stock rule. Right. What better example of a weaponized agency than this brace rule? It was approved a million times. We're going back and forth now. What's the deal? So Trump happened. And I had been talking to ATF for years another year and a half at that point. I was like, look, guys, this can't be done. And we spoke to the director at the time, who I don't remember his name, but he was the deputy director or the director. He'd been a gentleman who'd been there for quite a lot of time.
Was that Marvin?
No, it wasn't Marvin. Marvin was underneath him. It was, I'm trying to think of his name. Somebody will tell me who he was at that time. But at any rate, they're like, you're right. And they came out with another letter that clarified the clarification and said, you could, sporadically, incidentally, or occasionally fire from the shoulder. There's no, anybody who thought that, we intended to say that if it touches your shoulder, you're going to go to prison was wrong. Okay. So that was the clarification of the clarification. And things went crazy after that. I mean, it was like, everybody was like, yay. Everybody was like, a sigh of relief, and the industry was hunky-dory again. We went ahead for several years. Now, we all know what happened to Trump. You know, like him, hate him, whatever you want to say about him. The fact is that the agencies were weaponized against him. Thank you, Aaron. Aaron, huh?
Great name.
Yes.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah. So anyway, we know what they did to Trump. And again, like him, hate him, I don't care. It was politicized. It was very politicized.
Right.
And I think towards the end of it, I know towards the end of his administration, that flag that sits planted in the center of ATF's office started turning in another direction towards the left.
Right.
And essentially they started saying, well, we don't want you to do this. We don't want you to do that. And they, you know, the fact of the matter is that for years, SB Tactical and our attorneys will attest to this. For years, we've been saying, just give us a set of rules. Just give us a set of numbers. You want to talk about length of pull? What is the length of pull? Definitively. Tell me what it is. We will do that. You want to talk about, the amount of surface area? What is the surface area? We will abide by that.
We all just want definitions. We want clarity. Right. We want to be able to understand, and the vague language. I mean, this is something that I've been wanting to discuss with both of you, actually. One of the things that comes up is something that I learned when we were doing the legal brief with Adam. And I can't remember the name of the clause or law or whatever the hell it is, but it's something to the effect of, if it is like the law is unclear to a certain point, you aren't bound by it, or something to that nature. It's like the
rule of lenity.
Lenity, yeah.
So
does that apply to something like this? Like, can't we slap them with that? I don't know.
I think that's where everybody wants to go, and essentially the Fifth Circuit came out, and I've said this before, but what it boils down to is, if there is a criminal statute and criminal implications are at play, and the rule is ambiguous, then the rule of lenity applies.
Right.
Okay, that's what the Fifth Circuit essentially said about the bump stock case. And of course, they went and talked about what the actual definition of a machine gun was, and how that a bump stock is not a machine gun. They talked about that too, but the rule of lenity and ambiguity were two of the biggest concepts that they talked about. And they are the ones that probably apply most in our case as well, whereas the ATF has come out with a rule, okay? The rule has criminal implications. If the rule is ambiguous, does the rule of lenity apply? Now, there are a lot of people in our industry, and I won't call them out, that are, the people who are trying to kind of see the other side. And I'm sure that they can make the argument for the ATF. And I'm sure that the ATF does have an argument saying that it is not ambiguous. And in fact, the 293 pages say that they aren't ambiguous at all. They're saying, we simply got it wrong. And this is the way it is now. The problem is, even now, even through their FAQs, even through the way they're responding to people, there's ambiguity between the three of us. There's ambiguity between the 10 or 15 lawyers that are working on this case. It's ambiguous. Like, how could you say that I don't understand it. How are we going to expect 10 million people to understand it?
Right. One of the other things, while you're saying that, the two words coming to my mind are common use. And I think that's one of our pillars of our argument against this. But I find it super interesting that we're chasing this around, right? We're going around in circles chasing this, and I don't think anybody, despite the amount of pages, can say that this is a reasonable thing to do, right? Like, we're asking millions of Americans to destroy their property in some form or another. Remove it, destroy it, hand it in, you're destroying it. Whatever. We're asking that many Americans to do this. At what point is that an acceptable answer? Because to my knowledge, with any other sweeping quote unquote ban, whether you want to call it a ban or not, I'm going to call it a ban. I don't recall anything in my lifetime where a shift in an agency opinion has caused the destruction of millions upon millions of dollars worth of value to American citizens. Do you guys know of anything that has happened on? Anything even remotely similar?
No, and also I think we know this, but it's not said enough. This will, if it's allowed to continue, this will be the largest registration of firearms in the history of America.
Well, not only that, but then we're sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we're we talked about this idea of is that designed for a rifle or a pistol, right? We're in this weird conversation now, and this is one of the biggest implications to anybody that says this is fine. Holy crap, no, because what this opens up is a door into, is that an optic for a rifle or a pistol? Is that a trigger, a grip for a rifle or a pistol? Is that a handguard, a receiver for a rifle or a pistol? And then we get to decide all of these things. And then we create this mess of regulations against firearms owners. And then we have the inability to follow them because it is grossly confusing.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll tell you is this: the takings issue is something that I've spoken to with several different attorneys, and that's a difficult thing to achieve. That, I mean, it's law we're talking about, and so in order to have that type of application to what we're trying to do, it's a big hurdle. The government, that the cards are stacked in their favor. And, I'm looking just to bring Randy Allman, thank you, by the way. Doesn't the Brace ruling conflict with the ADA? It's the same thing. The cards are stacked in the government's favor. The DOJ has no obligation to the ADA, not for these types of rulings. So, yeah, I've heard it so many times. Why can't we just say it's an ADA issue and get rid of it? Why can't we just say it's a taking issue and that's the end of it? It's because, legally speaking, you can't use those things. They don't apply to this type of law. What we're looking at is APA law, which is American Procedures Act, right, which is a body of law that very few people know well, and that it's super intricate. There are so many different pieces at play. And that's why the ATF is going to have a problem. It's not to say that they didn't, like I've said before, this document that they've written, I can tell you ATF didn't draft this last document. That was DOJ. It's drafted much better. The thoughts that they came up with, the thought process, some of the ideas that they came up with are far better written than that first document that we read. And so it's going to be hard for us to respond to some of these things. Those types of things that we just talked about, ADA, takings, I got to tell you, every attorney I've spoken to, they're like, it's kind of like trying to fight for Second Amendment issues. Like a lot of like FBC, GOA, a lot of this, the issue is always, it's a 2A issue. It's not always a 2A issue. As much as we emotionally feel that, it is not a 2A issue. It's an issue that requires a different type of thought process. And Jared, we talked about this. What we said was, hey, what's it going to take here? Like, well, how much longer? Like, what's the process? When are you guys going to do something? It's going to take a little bit of time, because diving into all of this APA stuff is not a simple read and a response.
Right.
It's pulling out all of these different aspects and going to a judge and saying, hey, this is the list of reasons, and they have to be really reasoned out. They have to be real stuff. If we go in there screaming and waving a Second Amendment flag, the judge is going to be like, get out of here.
Right.
This is not the issue.
And before we get any deeper, I will say, they should have said this at the beginning, that when we do get some questions, I'm sure there are some things that Alex won't be able to address for obvious reasons, because ATF, they do watch YouTube, they do watch this channel. So the last thing I'm sure he wants to do is show his cards. So if there's something that he has asked and he can't address, guys and gals, understand why, and it's for good reason.
Hi ATF, I hope somebody farts in your cereal.
So Alex, what as somebody who's been in the center of this since day one, literally, what do you think the average person watching right now, what would you tell them that they should do to help this cause going forward, other than like us saying we should all work together? What should somebody do? What would be your advice?
I've met so many people in. I mean, the letter dropped. What was it, last Friday? Now, is that maybe before that? Last Friday,
2 weeks ago. Yeah,
2 weeks ago. I've met and spoken to, and I know my attorneys speak to attorneys from GOA, FPC, Second Amendment Foundation, NAG, you name it, NRA. Like, they're all part of it. And people ask me what you should do. FRAC is the organization that I think represents the industry in the best way. And FRAC is the Firearms Regulatory Accountability Coalition. You can go to fracaction.org. They are a industry group, so they're looking out for companies more than, Joe Smith, the guy who's waving a Second Amendment flag saying, hey, defend my rights. You want that? That's NRA, GOA, FPC, all of those guys. They're defending you personally. FRAC is an organization that defends the industry. And I think what we've had is a void in our industry for an organization that is actually there to protect you. And I hate calling people out because it's not right. And there's good people in every organization, but there is an organization in our industry that represents the industry. At least they should be.
I have not, and I could be wrong, and I will be corrected. But if I am wrong, correct me. But we're talking about the same organization, the 4 letters, Host Shot Show. I haven't seen them on Twitter or anything yet mention this at all, which is freaking frustrating, right?
So I hate being that guy, and I don't want to be that guy because I know that organization does a lot of stuff for people, and they've been there for a long time, and they've been a fantastic organization. The problem is, that they're supposed to be the organization that allows us to interact with the industry regulator. They're supposed to be like a way for us to be able to have somebody that, as a company, we can speak to, that speaks to the highest authorities at the agency. And in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, and obviously this affects me again personally, and I'm outing myself by saying I'm far too emotional about this, but as you guys know, it affects me personally. But at what point does the industry leader that represents us say that this relationship has gotten to the point where there's irreparable harm? Right. And it doesn't mean that we should be like, they are now excommunicado and it's over and you guys, you're kicked out of the show, ATF, you can't come back. But at what point do we really start seeing groups push back and say, no, it's enough, we've had enough of this?
I think it could be simplified in that, we just expect somebody that represents the industry to have the industry's best interest in mind and to show that publicly and in closed door sessions. I think that's a very basic need. And I will say it, the NSSF needs to get their crap together and stand up for this, because this is not the only issue. And I want to make, Alex, you said something, but I want to comment on before it becomes twisted, your words become twisted. You said something like this is a personal issue for you. And I know people have said this in the past. They've tried to attack SB Tactical and things like that. And I think one of the core issues is that Alex has a personal vested interest in this because he cares about all of the people affected. When I went to Alex's house back in 2021, one of the private conversations I had with him was about all of this kind of stuff. And one of the number one things that he brought up unprovoked, about all of this, is how much he cares about the people at SB Tactical, the people that are literally, their lives rely on these products and these things. And it goes out so much farther. He's talking about industry representation as an important thing. And there are people behind all of these companies, and they're all personally affected by these sweeping, ridiculous changes. And I think it's very important to understand the perspective that somebody like him in his position has. There's far more than just, Alex and his family. It's way bigger than that.
I also want to jump in and say that just about every manufacturer in our industry has made a nickel off of your devices. And every one of those, and I'll say it, every friggin' company, whether it's Smith & Wesson, SIG, you insert their name here, they should all be involved in this, because this is not only affecting them, but they have the ability to say, all right, we won't sell this anymore. But this is your company. Like, this could seriously affect what you've done. And for them to stand by the wayside won't look good. I know some of them will probably step up, but I think all of them should. If they had any sales in America for firearms, they should be in on this, because this is that hill. I mean, if we're going to allow the government to just change their mind all willy-nilly, that's an official official phrase there, willy-nilly, then they're just going to, what are they going to stop with? I mean, bump stocks, red flag, pistol braces, what's next? It's going to be something, because if they're not put in check, they're just going to keep up this administrative bureaucracy.
Yeah, so I think, just to jump on that, and thanks for bringing out that point, because for me, like I said, it's personal. It's about it's not just the people that work for me. It's the people that spent their hard-earned money to purchase a product that I went out of my way. I went out of my way to find a way to make sure that ATF at every corner was okay with what we were doing. Okay, we wanted to comply with whatever ATF said. Just tell me what you want me to do. We'll come out with a product. People spent their hard-earned money on this product. So yes, it's the people that work for me. It's the little company out in Kentucky that's making the product. It's making little bits and pieces. It affects everybody. And you're right. A lot of people made money on this. And I think that FRAC, which is again an industry representative, is the group that people should donate to and go to and be part of, because they are the ones that are going to spearhead this operation. This is a beachhead that I'm ready to die on. I'm willing to do that. Is this something that the Democratic Party and that the ATF is willing? Do they want to die on this beachhead of 922R compliance and braces?
Right.
I mean, I guess they are, but I mean, who's got the strongest will now? I guess who's got the strongest case is the issue.
So I have a question for both of you, because you're both more educated on this than I am. My concern. Say what?
That's a bold statement.
So one of the things that comes to my mind is, we're sort of in this holding pattern while we're waiting for the epic trilogy to be dropped into the Federal Register. So while we're waiting for so it gets published, right? Then the lawsuits can be fired up and yada yada yada. Is there enough time in that 120-day window to get some kind of injunction place to cause us to go, okay, I can breathe? Is that realistic?
Well, I can't speak for Alex. Let me jump in real quick, because I asked this question of a couple of attorneys over the last 3 days, and 2 out of 3 said this: it's possible. There's a way to get it done, as long as it's a favorable circuit, obviously, and that would be an immediate course that some will take. And Alex, you can jump in. I don't know what you want to say as far as what you guys are planning, but
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to get there. And I think the attorneys will call them out. I mean, there's specific words for asking for a certain type of relief, but when you ask for a certain type of relief of a court, there is a hurdle that you have to jump over, which is to prove, the types of issues that you're going to have as a company. Now, I'm not an attorney. We've got a lot of attorneys that are working for us that are working on how to do this, but it could be, I mean, people have asked me this all the time, and I ask this question of attorneys all the time. They could say 3 to 6 months, maybe more. But again, it's about what circuit are you in? What judge do you get? What type of arguments are they going to make? Right. What type of arguments are we going to make? What kind of errors are they going to make in the meantime? What type of errors can we make in the meantime? Which is why you brought up the fact of, well, what's Alex Bosco going to say online that's stupid? And how is the ATF going to take what Alex Bosco said and misconstrue it in a way that's going to, maybe they're gonna put me up on the stand, and they're gonna try and, the argument that attorneys will always say about me going out online and talking is, you're gonna say something, they're gonna put you on the stand, they're gonna ask you a question, you're going to answer differently than what you answered online, and they're going to put you in contempt of court for saying that you, or contempt, or, you know, whatever, you lied in court. You know, when the actual fact of the matter is, I've spoken to so many people, you know, the things that I'm saying are fairly standard because we're talking about the same issues, but they're looking for errors. So are we. Again, it's a beachhead we're fighting on here. And there's two very strong teams. And I think our side has a really strong argument. I think that there's a really good opportunity for us to resolve this quickly, possibly within the 120 days, but a lot of things have to go right for that to happen. And so when you asked me before, you were saying, well, what should people do? You know, I think I was on a show and they said, oh, you know, non-compliance. Non-compliance is what I was talking about in this other show, was saying non-compliance has worked in the past. I've seen it work in New York City when I was a kid. They had marijuana day and everybody was out in the street smoking marijuana, and the cops, you know, couldn't do anything because everybody was doing it. You know, it's kind of a form of rebellion. And I was watching a show about picketing and parading. Now, you guys have probably heard this because of the January 6th thing. A lot of people were accused of picketing and parading. Well, somebody did a study on that law and when they made it, and it goes all the way back to the suffrage, the area of when women were picketing in front of the White House. And the White House kind of lost their shit, and they were like, you know, we can't have all these ladies in front of us picketing and parading. So they came up with a law, a rule. Now, I don't know if that's exactly the way it went, but the point is they were saying, well, we're going to make this rule. We're really not going to apply the rule, but we're going to make the rule. And it came out that way. Well, now they're coming out with this other rule. Well, you know, we're not going to apply this part of the rule, but we may apply that part of the rule. So I'm deviating from the discussion. The point is, we need a lot of things to work right. We need to make good arguments. We need to take our time. It's going to take a little bit of time. So just everybody needs to cool their jets. If in the meantime, you're a person who has, you know, the type of character where you can't live a certain way, you're afraid of you know, being in possession of something, the ATF is giving you a lot of opportunities to do what you need to do. And you know, while I'm not particularly fond of some of those options, you need to do what you think is best for you and your family. You know, I'm not an attorney. I think that we should all be fighting and pushing in the same direction, but that's not for everybody. Everybody's got to make their own choice.
It's a good point. Yeah, it is a good point. We can't. This is America. We all think differently. We all have different values. So some people will take the opportunity before them, and some people will want to hold that line. And I'm not an attorney either, but my suggestion for folks is wait a little bit. 120 days is a long time. You're talking about the end of May, and we might have the opportunity to make this go away by the end of May. So you never know. So don't rush, you know, to get that free SBR tax stamp. And if you've never had an NFA item, which John and Alex can talk about, there's a lot of restrictions that come with that stuff. So just don't just jump into it thinking you're going to be able to tout around an SBR somewhere, because you can't go everywhere with them. And there's a lot of states that you can't even have them in. So this will affect you in those states. So know your state laws. I
mean, you know, that could be an argument. There are so many layers to this. I find it fascinating that they thought this was a good idea. Somebody thought this was the one. This was where they were going to get us. I find it interesting because here's something that came up earlier, and I want to pose this question. And in the comments, I really want to know if you guys agree with me on this. Here watching right now, it is arguable that our audience is firearms enthusiasts. Would you agree? Nod, yes, no? Okay.
Yeah.
So firearms enthusiasts generally know about these things. There is not a way for the ATF to alert however many million people have braced firearms. There is no way for them to alert those people that they are potentially in possession of something that could cause them harm. And I find it fascinating that we are just going, meh, maybe you will be a felon. You know, I'm not saying the industry is doing this. I'm just saying that the presentation of this information is not being disseminated amongst major news outlets. It's not being disseminated through letters in the mail to potential firearm. You know, hey, this is a thing. We are the ATF is just expecting people to know that this exists at all. Because how many people go into a gun store and went, that one's cool, I'll take that. These are sort of people that are not the enthusiasts. And I would argue that those people take up more of the gun owning public than the enthusiast community. And they're just supposed to comply with something that they're unaware of and may not be aware of until next year. This is absurd in its own right.
Or even worse, if this goes into effect and they're at a range and they have an overzealous range officer who makes a phone call, and then now this person's looking at 10.25 mil. You know, it's crazy.
Do any of you guys know? I mean, this is a question, and maybe whoever's listening can even answer the question. But when was the last time in history that the federal government came up with a rule that affected this amount of people in this way? And by in this way, I mean, if you go against this regulation, it's literal prison time that we're talking about.
Was prohibition that bad? I don't know.
I mean, I think, so it's funny you bring that up, because I think, as I sit in this speakeasy bar, that it was prohibition. I think that's the last time that the government came up with something. Now, given that actually went, I think, through Congress, like they actually came up with a law of some sort. I don't know that it went through the regulatory process, but
unless you were a Kennedy.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But when was the last time this happened? And to go back to what you were saying, Jonathan, it's like, why isn't, and again, too emotional, but why is it that everybody isn't screaming at the top of their lungs? Why isn't the news saying the ATF is coming up with a regulation that affects 10 million plus people? Like, to me, it's like, well, and the answer is, they showed us that UFOs exist and nobody said anything.
Right.
And they're saying that John F. Kennedy was probably killed by the CIA and nobody says anything. They're telling us that the COVID disease was engineered and nobody's saying anything. It's like, man.
I mean, I could tell you exactly why.
This is why.
Yeah.
I think it's deeper than that, Jared. I really do. I think the constant abuse that we take from either social media, mainstream media, news outlets, newspapers, this constant barrage of information has fatigued not just the American people, but people worldwide. And that fatigue leads to us putting up this sort of wall around ourselves of that doesn't directly affect my life right now.
Right.
So I will keep that information at a given distance away from I care about this center. Right. And because we are facing this absolute barrage, it almost degrades all of these ridiculous, crazy points. Right. You talked about the CIA murdering Kennedy. That's unbelievable to me. You talked about aliens being a real thing. Like we had this hunch, right? We had this hunch, but no, that's real. That's a real thing. OMG, right? We now can see deeper into space than ever before. We have seen the beginnings of the universe farther than we ever have before. And you don't hear people talking about this because the sort of grandiose nature of how big these things are all at once are literally incomprehensible to our feeble brain. We are not capable of processing the gravity. And I heard this story, and this is relevant. I heard this story, and it came from Tom Segura, a stand-up comedian, brilliant guy. He made this point that people become too famous, and they go absolutely nuts. Because, and my belief is very strong on this, humans were not created to be able to circumnavigate the globe in a matter of hours. And once you get to a point where you have so much money that you can do anything on our planet, your world shrinks. Your world shrinks. You cannot relate to certain people. You don't have the same wherewithal. And based on that sort of shrinking world thing that we're all experiencing, we're all just having this sort of cocoon created around ourselves mentally. And I think it's absolutely fascinating that these things that are absolutely bonkers, we can't comprehend them.
That's a good point, man. I mean, look what happened with Dave Chappelle, right? Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you talk about fatigue. I mean, that's, we talk about it at SB Tactical. It's called brace fatigue internally. And we get it because, you get all these questions over the years, well, can I do this? Oh, can I do that? Hey, we start off by saying it's approved. Oh, it's not approved. Oh, it is approved. And all of this fatigue that people have, people just end up saying, well, we'll be fine. We'll be okay. Everything's okay. Don't worry about it. They're not coming for our guns. Don't worry about it. I hear it all the time. The problem is that they're not coming for them until they do. And, we finally gotten to a point after 10 years that, bam, this is the 293 pages, let the battle begin. Hopefully there are enough people that aren't sitting there like this saying, hey, and I'm not one of those people. I'm going to do everything I possibly can to fight for this thing. I've got the best people on it, and I'm not going to stop. Like, I am not going to stop, guys. Like, everybody who's listening needs to know that, including the ATF guys. Like, this is not something that I'm just willing to take a step back from. Not after everything that's happened, not after the hundreds of conversations I've had with the highest levels of ATF. Nothing is going to stop me at this point. Now, am I going to be successful? I sure should hope so. And if any of you guys are praying out there, pray, because this is one of those times where I hate getting religious. It's not my thing. I don't think I've ever even talked to you about it, Jonathan, and you're one of the closest people I know, but we need God on our side, man. And not just for this, for a whole bunch of other stuff. Like, we just need to find our way. And I think we're all kind of lost right now. And this is just, it adds to the whole bunch of stuff that we're dealing with.
Yeah, so. There's definitely a lack of morals in this country, and has been for a while, and it's kind of led to the I guess the decay of what American fabric was. Yeah, I agree. Let's all right, let's try to make people think out here. I want you to leave a comment down below, and I'll have Alex answer this in a couple minutes. What do you think of all the braces that SB Tactical has come up with, made, sold? What would his favorite one be? Like, if he had to go out and grab one on a shelf today, what would it be? Good. What do you think, John? Good question. Think we should get some...
I think that's a very difficult question for him to answer, let alone us to know.
Well, because they're all his babies.
I know what I think about which one is the best.
I know which one you're going to pick too.
Oh, do you? Oh, that's even more fun.
Wow, maybe I'm wrong, but
that's even more fun.
Guys and gals, if you've enjoyed this thus far, please hit that like button so more people see it. Share the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're close to 600,000 subscribers here on Guns and Gadgets, and nothing would make me happier than at a time where YouTube is targeting the Second Amendment community and giving people strikes left and right and deleting channels just because people show lawful items or say lawful things. Nothing would make me giggle more as if I can keep climbing to hit that million just to shove it in their face. So hit that subscribe button down below. Also, one of the guys here, Mr. John Patton at TGC, they're in this scenario. John, tell them your backup channel, and let's get some people to subscribe there as well.
Okay,
I'll be right back to you guys. Stay there.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah. So I recently caught a strike on the main channel, the Gun Collective. We have another channel that has existed for a while. It's called TGC Surplus. And that is where you can find some backup stuff right now, maybe a podcast if you're into that in the future. But please go subscribe to that so that if I have the opportunity to get some more content going on that channel, you are there to see it. Also, do me a favor. If you're here because TGC sent you over here to watch this, you follow me, go subscribe to Guns and Gadgets. I think that's a really important thing. I want to see that 600K. I want to see it. I want that. That would make me feel better. That would make me feel better.
It'll at least give me something to tell the wife. Look, I achieved something. of all the hours I've left you for the last 2 weeks with this ATF crazy stuff.
hey, you know that you haven't seen me for a while. Yeah, I got a number that's bigger.
I just saw a comment swing by. Here it is. Get on Rumble.
Oh boy,
87.
Are we gonna do this right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna say that because, and it's not a shot at you, 87. It's not a shot at anybody else. But the fact that you asked that question or made that statement proves to me that the Second Amendment eyes aren't on Rumble, because I've been on Rumble for about 2 years now. So they don't push the Second Amendment content over there. It's a different type. It's not algorithm fed. It's a totally different item over there. And it was made for basically the co-founders. So it's made for like people like a Bongino or something like that, where they have, hard hitting political commentary that were kicked off everywhere else. They don't really push our content. I've been on there a long time. So chances are every channel you're going to say that to is on there, but it's just not, I mean, like somebody said a year ago, stop trying to make Rumble happen. It's just not there yet where it needs to be, but I've been on there for a while.
So I made a comment on Twitter yesterday or the day prior, and I said that I believe, and I wholeheartedly believe this, Rumble needs to fund interesting new content. Shout out to Bearded Buffoon. Thank you for that. Game nights were a riot.
Yes, they were.
If you can dig those videos up, whoo, those are uncensored and ridiculous. So Rumble needs to fund new content for Rumble. And the reason I say that is because what ends up happening, and this any new platform, you replace Rumble with Utreon, Full30, any of these platforms that are available, and what you have is the same content that's on YouTube in a different location.
Right.
There is zero incentive for somebody that's already in the YouTube ecosystem to filter over. And what'll happen is, even if there was a mass exodus, hey, we're going over here to such as that, we're going to this site over here, that will last about a month, and then everybody will make their way back to all of the other creators, because people are multifaceted and do not just only watch gun content. If you do, you need a better hobby. Like, oh my goodness, that is like, have a more well-rounded personality, please. But the point is, that doesn't fly. It's just not going to fly until YouTube says all gun stuff is gone. Until then, it ain't going to happen.
And then there's the other factor, like Google owns Google's YouTube, YouTube's Google. They're the number 1 and number 2 largest search engines in the world. They have so much money that if something like a Rumble were to be a serious contender, they would just buy them out.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
And I guarantee they would sell.
Oh yeah, in effect, if Rumble gets too successful, Google will just crush it anyway and buy it out. That's the same reason you don't see the vehicles where engines run on water. They were invented, but those people disappeared. But all right, Alex is back. All right, dude. Let's see. First off, John, what's your guess of what his favorite one? He has everyone on his shelf. He can pick any pistol brace he's made over the years to go to the range. Which one is he picking?
It's funny because I feel like I asked him this question when I was in his house, and I don't remember the answer.
You did ask me that question.
I want to say it's the SBA 3.
I would have said the 4.
So it's neither.
All right. What is it?
It's the SBM 4 is my favorite brace. And the SBM 4 is because so the SB15 was the first brace that I ever made. But I wanted the SBM4 to be the SB15, like that. The look, the style of the SBM4, for me, was the first time I looked at it. I was like, God damn it, it's a really great looking brace. Now, SBA3 and SBA4, I mean, those were monsters in the industry. I mean, just monsters. But the SBM4 for me. But the brace that I love the most, that Jonathan owns, is a pink SB15. That is, and I think did I give that to you, or did you get that from somebody else?
So I actually bought, but I have 2 pink ones. I bought both of them. You gave me one that is like blaze orange. It is bright orange. So I have Alex sent me a box one time, and it was a bright orange one, one that I call doo-doo brown.
Yeah.
And like a couple other. I have one that has a POF logo on it. I have no idea I guess you sent it, because I have no idea where I got it. But wow, the orange one is primo
Keep the
as well.
So the POF one, interesting. So, do you guys know about POF? You know the founder of POF? Are you guys?
Yeah, I know. I met Frank. I met Cody.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
great guys.
Frank DeSoma was one of the few people who, when I got to SHOT Show the year that I essentially Shark Tanked this thing, he was like a mentor to me. I mean, he really sat me down. He's like, "You got a great idea. I would love for you to come to POF, but you don't want to come to me right now. You want to go to somebody else." And he sat down and he explained to me, and he's like, "Don't." He was just really a positive figure to me. And we always at SB, we always tried to do the best we can for POF, and when Frank died, I mean, for me, it was like a father figure for me. I mean, he was just such a great dude. And there's not that many of those POF, the POF logoed braces. So that's a good one. And the other one that I was going to say is that orange one and the pink one. There's not that many of those either. So if you got a pink brace sitting around or an odd colored brace sitting around that's not the usual, OD green, FDE, or black, those are rare. So someday they might be worth something someday. Who knows?
I also have a picture somewhere, and I'll have to post it on Instagram. I have a picture somewhere of holding one of the early prototypes of the brace while I was standing in Alex's house. Yeah, that was a cool experience.
That's
cool.
Yeah.
That's an awesome one.
He goes, "Here, take this." I'm like, "Well, what? Oh my goodness, what is this?" Freaking out. That's very cool.
Yeah.
XSSFD, we addressed that already. They did correct that and they removed it from the site. The government actually admitted they made a mistake, which is, you should write today's date somewhere and circle it, because that doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
All right, we're over the hour mark. Alex, is there anything that we didn't hit on that you think you want out there? Obviously, without giving away too much on your end. Oh, do you think the people need to know, or anything like that?
The one thing I'll bring up again, because it's important, because now is the time to fight, is that FRAC is the organization that we think is the at the tip of the spear for the industry for this issue. And you can go to fracaction.org, and you can get all the info that you need there. But again, if you're not interested in FRAC, GOA, FPC, NAGR, Second Amendment Foundation, all of those people, whoever it is, do go to somebody. And I will say this, and this is something that I haven't said I don't think I've said it to anybody. I might have said something the other day, so it might be a scoop for you guys. I sat down with NRA at SHOT Show, and the NRA is essentially going to help fund this entire lawsuit and help us out. And I don't know that they want me to go out and say that, because they're not interested in any. They told me, like, don't say it to anybody, and so I'm kind of outing them.
Oops.
But yeah, oops. But the people that are there reached out to me. There are some attorneys there that really want this fight. They're interested in it. They want to be part of it, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. And I know that a lot of us have some issues with NRA, and I think that there's time to discuss that. But there's people there that I sat down with. Josh Savani is one of them. Jason Lemet, and they were particularly interested. They knew the issue. They wanted the fight. They reached out, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. And that's a scoop, I guess. Nobody really knows about that, but it's the real deal, and it's just such a relief to have somebody reach out. And guys, we're not talking about a couple $100,000 here. I mean, fighting the federal government is $1 million lawsuit in the first 4 months. If this thing lasts for six months to a year, you're talking millions of dollars.
Right.
So, I mean, SB Tactical, we don't have that kind of money, and that's why FRAC is so important too. So, shout out to NRA. Thanks to them. I was too emotional again when I sat down with them, because it was just like, what? Are you serious? It was just the craziest thing ever.
Wow.
So, at any rate, there you go.
Well,
that's crazy.
Good. It's shocking. That's good.
Yeah. I still think they are a bag of something inappropriate, but that is amazing. I'm glad that they decided to support this cause, because this is a fight where we're going to need everybody for sure.
Yeah, this is a big one. Definitely a big one. John, you have any last words for the peeps?
Sure. Yeah, I do. I think all of those groups that Alex mentioned are great. I think this is a great opportunity to be aware that you will be asked for donations and support throughout this journey by a lot of people. And it is important to remain steadfast and understand that this is a big fight and this is a big deal. And we need everybody on deck, including you guys, including all of your favorite content creators. Get ready, buckle up. It's just getting started. Those lawsuits start, that's when it gets started. Not now. We know their plan. We know what they're going to try and say. We sure do. And we also know that we are going to fight them tooth and nail on this. And please be aware that this will be tiring to all of you. You will hear this for months, but get ready. It's coming.
Absolutely. And just one thing I want to add on that is, I say it a few times. I seriously mean it. And right now it's even more important. We have to pull together. We can't be fractured and beat the U.S. government. You're just not going to do it. So when it's time to take action, if FRAC says, hey guys, we want to flood some phone calls to this office, let's do it. If another lawsuit is filed by a different group and they say, hey, send some emails or letters to this person, let's do it. I think it's time for us to no longer be that silent majority. It's time to be loud and proud, like the other side of the aisle does. Anytime something happens, they're out there bitching, whining, and screaming, and they typically get their way, and the buck stops here with us. I don't know about you guys. I got 4 kids, and I can't look them in the eye and knowing I didn't do what needed to be done for the one right that keeps us all free in America.
Yes, this is the fight of our generation, guys. Like, this is the gun fight of our generation. We weren't around for NFA. We weren't around for GCA. We weren't. I was around for the assault weapons ban, but I was in the Marines. It's like, this is our fight. It's our time. We need to get involved. I don't care who it is. Do it. Get involved. Give to somebody, but do something.
Absolutely. And I'm going to fight until we see that friggin' ATF defunded and just gone. They suck. They don't need to be here. And it's on us, guys. It really is, because legislators aren't going to do anything unless we make them uncomfortable, right? When I hear the noise, I see the light, and that's how they operate.
Yeah. Did anybody else hear the Goonies quote in their head? This is our time. This is our time right now.
This is our time.
I literally just watched that on the plane coming back from
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, Alex, John, thank you for your time, guys. I know you both are extremely busy, and to put an hour out here, plus, thank you so much. It means so much to me. Anytime you need me, give me a holler if you want to come back on for anything to get info out. I'm here for you, guys and gals. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate each and every single one of you more than you know. Like I always say, be safe, stay vigilant, and carry a gun to keep you, your friends, your family, your community safe. That's what the Second Amendment is for. Make no mistake. And that's why they want to take it so damn bad from us. It's on us, and our forefathers died for it, and it's our job to keep it. I'll see y'all on the next one. Have a fantastic evening. Down with the ATF. Take care, guys.
Bye.